Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 6-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 1 o'clock. I do want to note that the Cleveland-Baltimore game should have some rain around, but that game should be good to go. But just keep that in mind. My core plays today are Voldy, Gurriel Jr., and Santander. Drop a comment below with your home run calls today. There's some really good opportunities on this particular slate for home runs, and pitching is somewhat weak. So let's go ahead and get started. Before I get into it, though, can you guys drop a like, comment, and subscribe? Make sure to share the video as well. Let's get into the slate here. So for pitchers, we're going to start with Nathan Eovaldi here as a core play. He is going to be extremely chalky today. He's been really solid this season, especially in the last 4 games. In last 5 games, he's had 4 games over 27 fantasy points. He's also had 7 straight quality starts. He's given up 1 earned or less in 4 of the last 5 games as well. He has some really great opportunity here against a weak opponent, so I do think he is the top play on the slate at the pitching position. We're also going to look at Sonny Gray, who draws a kind of tough start here against Houston, but I do like Minnesota's opportunity here and Gray's options here. The matchup isn't ideal, obviously, but he does draw some upside with a decent K rate. He's only given up 11 earned runs in his 10 starts. Though he only has 3 quality starts, he's not made out of 5 innings in the last 4 games. He definitely draws some utility here as a contrarian play on the slate. And then we're going to look at JP France for Houston. Now, he does face Minnesota, and I do like some players from Minnesota from the bat perspective, and I think that they're a contrarian batting stack. But he is cheap, and he's had 3 straight games over 18 fantasy points. He's had 3 games over 18 fantasy points in his 4 starts, and this is a good matchup for him. His K rate could be a little bit better, but he doesn't go too deep in games, but he's cheap enough that he's kind of a good option on the slate. You could also look at Tyler Wells, Taj Bradley, and Marcus Stroman, though I feel like all 3 of those guys are in kind of rough situations. So my top stacks today are St. Louis, Kansas City, Arizona, and Texas, and my top contrarian stack is Minnesota. So let's go and get into our catchers now, and we're going to start with Jonah Heim for Texas. Now, he draws a very interesting matchups here. They are pretty much off the charts here. I love his upside. Though he hasn't had a home run in a while, he does manage to score fantasy points in most games. He's been getting 7 a lot, and so at his price range, that's enough right here to be viable, but he also has the home run potential, which is what really draws me to him today, but I don't feel like his floor is as low as some of the other options. Then we'll look at Wilson Contreras for St. Louis. Now, St. Louis does draw some interesting utility here, though he has not been hitting the ball very well. He's had a couple games where he's been good, but he's been a little bit inconsistent. He's nearly the same price as Heim, and he definitely has good metrics for the slate. I wouldn't feel bad using either one of those guys with their upside, but Wilson has a lower floor. Then we'll look at a cheap option in James McCann. The metrics for him is jumping off the charts today, which he does sometimes do. If he draws a start, he'll be interesting as a value play for Baltimore and part of a Baltimore stack potentially, so I definitely think he's in consideration today. You can also consider Salvador Perez today at this position. Overall, catcher is a pretty solid set of options today. Some of the value and some value here, which is worth a look, and they're all priced pretty fairly. Moving into the first base, we're going to start with Mountcastle for Baltimore. I really do kind of like a Baltimore stack today. He has really great metrics on this matchup, and he looks like a solid option. He has home run potential, and he's hitting the ball okay. He definitely has bad games, but he definitely has been playing pretty well as of late. The batting average isn't ideal, but he's, in play on this one. Then we'll look at Paul Goldschmidt for St. Louis. He's a good alternative to Mountcastle, though he's very expensive. St. Louis is also pretty stackable, and he's a top option on that team. He looks like a very decent option to get a home run today. He's been hitting the ball extremely well lately, and I like his upside. And then we'll look at Joey Gallo. If you go with a Minnesota stack, he's definitely somebody that I would put into the roster. He has been boom or bust throughout the season, but he definitely has some good utility in this matchup, especially with the metrics jumping off the charts. The only catch with him is he tends to get a lot of strikeouts. You can also consider Pavin Smith, Christian Walker, and Nate Lowe at this position. First base feels like a decent position today, but not as good as most days, whereas there's just not a ton of guys that look like they're just jumping off the charts, making me, want to use them overwhelmingly. Then we'll look at second base. We're going to look at Marcus Semien for Texas. Now, he draws incredible metrics for this matchup. He's hitting the ball pretty well. He's had a lot of good games lately, and he has got home run potential in this one, too, though his price is extremely expensive and hard to roster. But Texas is a good stack if you can figure out how to do it, which it is possible. It's just not easy. Look at Jose Altuve today as well as a good contrarian option off of Semien. He's a little bit cheaper. He's gotten his first home run yesterday, and it looks like he's playing more like himself. He's had 3 straight multi-hit games, and batting average is nice as well. And then for a value play at this position, we'll look at Julian for Minnesota. Now, he's high risk, high reward here, but he definitely draws good metrics for this matchup, and he should be popular at this price, especially if he leads off. Then, obviously, you want to make sure he's going to start. Also consider Brandon Lowe, Ketel Marte, Nolan Gorman, and Tommy Edman at this position. A lot of the options here at second base are pretty expensive, but there are a couple of value plays that are definitely in play, but I do like the expensive options the most. Moving into third base, we'll look at Josh Jung, who has had some really great upside recently, and he's hitting the ball pretty well. He has home run potential in this game, and he's priced high, but he definitely has top-tier metrics for this matchup. Then we'll look at Nolan Arenado, who's priced almost the same. Now, he has been going up and down throughout the season. He started off terrible, and then he got a good streak going, and now he's kind of had a rough streak of games. But he draws incredible metrics for this matchup, and I do think he's a viable alternative to Jung, though he's high risk, high reward. Also consider Ryan McMahon, Alex Bregman, Jose Ramirez, and Isaac Paredes here. At third base, there's not a lot of value. A couple with great metrics, but everyone feels riskier than they should. Not my favorite third base position slate here. Moving into shortstops, we'll look at Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa here from Minnesota. Now, if you like a Minnesota stack, he's definitely worth a look. He's high risk, high reward, though, as his batting average has been rough, but he is getting hits a lot in the last week or so. I like his decent metrics here, and his price is pretty fair. Now, a good alternative to him, if we don't like a Minnesota stack, is to go with Mateo from Baltimore. Mateo had started the season extremely crazy, having all sorts of crazy good games. Then he kind of balanced out for a while, and his batting average has come down a lot. But when he does get on base, he has stolen base potential, and he definitely draws some really unique opportunity here on this particular slate. I haven't seen his metrics been this good for a while, but this matchup against a slumping team and pitcher really gives him some upside, and I think he's viable on the slate. You can also consider Corey Seager, Dansby Swanson, and Paul DeJong here. There's not much to love about shortstop today. Largely, I go with the team stack shortstop, so if you're stacking St. Louis, row with DeJong. If you're stacking Minnesota, you go with Correa, or if you're stacking, Texas, maybe Corey Seager. So that's kind of how I look at this stackable team today. Moving into the outfielders, we're going to start with 3 top plays in Yordan Alvarez, Corbin Carroll, and then Byron Buxton, who all look like just absolute Byron Buxton, where is he? All look like absolute great options on this slate, but they're all obviously super expensive. But if you are stacking one of those 3 teams, Houston, Arizona, and Minnesota, they would definitely be good options to put in your lineup. Then for value plays, we're going to look at Anthony Santander first here as a good as a core play. In fact, he's hitting the ball pretty well lately. I like his upside. He's getting a decent fantasy points in some games. He has home run potential in this one, and he definitely has the power for this particular matchup. Max Keebler is also in play, or Kepler is also in play here. I don't know why I said Keebler. He's coming back from injury today, and if he does draw the start, he'll definitely be in play as a value option on this particular slate. Joey Gallo can also play this position, just like he can play first base, and he has really good metrics here. Austin Hayes is a great option if you're doing a Baltimore stack. He has some really good potential in this matchup, and he's got a really good batting average, and he's hitting the ball extremely well lately. Then we'll look at Grossman for Texas, who looks like he's drawing some really great metrics for this matchup. I like his upside, and he has some great utility here in this situation. Newt Bart is also in play for St. Louis. I really like his potential in this game, though he seems a little riskier due to his price, but he's definitely in play on this one. Then we'll look at Gurriel Jr. Oh yeah, he's a core play. Sorry about that. For Arizona, he draws some really great metrics for this matchup. I really like him here. I think he's a guy that you almost have to play because of his potential and nice upside, and his price is pretty cheap. Honestly, if I'm surprised that he hasn't risen over $4,500 at this point. And then Pavin Smith is a Hail Mary approach option here for Arizona. He's high risk, high reward, but if you go with an Arizona stack, he's definitely somebody you could roster with some low end home run potential. So, with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.